Great. Well, good morning, everyone. It is so good to see you all. Thanks for being with us. We have been, over the course of the last few months, on a journey in Mark's Gospel. Mark is one of the storytellers of the life of Jesus, and he has been talking about the way. Jesus has been talking about the way. A way of life, a way of following him, ultimately the way to God. Church is pretty different at the moment, isn't it? It's not what we're used to. We've got these silly masks on, and we can't do all the things we want to do. No singing, and it just isn't what we would want it to be right now. For many of us, our lives are very different to how they would normally be. There are things we want to do that we can't do, and yet here's the truth. Jesus Christ died and rose again and is alive forever, unchanging. Today, our lives change an awful lot, but Jesus Christ said that he would never change. The Bible says he doesn't change yesterday, today, or forever. Today, we come to one who spoke and still speaks, to one who changed lives and still changes lives, to one who lived and who lives. Today, we come to one who is able and capable and willing to strengthen and restore and heal. Today, we come to one who is mighty. So I just want to encourage you as we grapple with the words of Jesus. The one who we hear speaking is not some ancient prophet, not some great religious leader. We come to one speaking who claimed to be God himself, the unchanging one, whose words are able to change our lives. And so coming to the end of Mark's story, which has seen Jesus journeying all the way to Jerusalem, heading unstoppably towards Calvary, the place where he would die for us, take our guilt and our stains and our brokenness, that we might live in the freedom of God's presence, guilt-free and free of our sin. Having got to that place and seen Jesus coming to the very gates of Jerusalem, where people are throwing down their coats on the road, welcoming in Jesus to the city, we're now going to take a sidestep into John's perspective on the story. We come to the end of the road, but see what the story takes us to in John's version. So we're going to read from John chapter 14, verse 1 to 7. Here we go. Let me read. The words are going to come up on the screen, so do follow those if you're able to. Jesus said, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself. And where I am, you may be also. And you know the way to where I'm going." And Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way?" Jesus said to him, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also, and from now on you do know him and have seen him." And this morning we're going to be zooming in on those few short words, I am the way. 4 words, but 4 words that have the power to change our very lives. We live in a day where Jesus' words here are more apt than ever before. He speaks to his people and says, don't be troubled. Don't let your hearts be troubled, concerned, worried. And we live in a day where many of us and many people around us are troubled for a whole host of reasons. We live in circumstances where our world is troubled, maybe more than ever before. Jesus' words, do not be troubled, ring loud and clear today. We need it. Jesus cuts to the chase. Don't be troubled. Why? Why? Because I am the way. And here's what it hinges on. I don't know if you noticed, these are words, right? If you've ever been to a funeral, which I presume most of you have, you've probably heard these words. These are verses that are commonly read at funerals. Because in a sense, they direct us to heaven. They speak about hope even beyond the grave. But that isn't all they do. And what I want to show you today is this. Jesus' promise of being a way to God isn't just some future distant reality. Jesus says today, right in the midst of your life and right in the midst of your circumstances, wherever you find yourself today, Jesus says, I am the way to God in the midst of it all. The way to fulfillment and hope and life in him right now. And Jesus says, I've come and I'm going to do what? To prepare a place for you. You know, almost all of our troubles spring from a lack of place. Right now, many people are troubled because life is insecure and shaky. Health may be unshaky. Emotions and economics may be shaky. There's no secure place to stand on. And Jesus says, I'm going to prepare a place that is secure for you. Let me ask you a question. Where's your place in life? Where's the place that you feel secure? A lot of us kind of find ourselves attached to a geographical place. Maybe a town or a place we grew up. Maybe a home, a house. That's your place. It's your place where you feel secure and at home. For some people, it's amongst a people. This is my home. These are my people. This is where I belong. I don't know what it is for you. If you've got Google Photos as an app on your phone, you'll find it has this ability to do something incredibly annoying. It has this ability to flash up incredible memories on days where you're not creating incredible memories, right? Does it do that? And it's almost like Google one day says, right, today's the day, I'm going to rub their face in it. Here we go, look at what you were doing 5 years ago today. Anyone ever get that happen? That happens to me all the time. Well, this morning it flashed up on my Google Photos what I was doing 2 years ago today. Anyone want to know what that was? I was on a plane flying to Florida 2 years ago today. It just said, hey, this is what you were doing. Now, and I kind of heard Google silently speaking to me, now you can't go 15 miles. Ha ha ha. I just kind of sensed that was Google's motive in showing me the photos. It does that. And yet, even when I was on the other side of the world, and many of you have experienced this, you knew in your soul you weren't at home. There's a feeling, this isn't my place and these aren't my people. And yet what Jesus is speaking to is a deeper kind of restlessness of the soul. Not that restlessness when you feel when you're far from home and on the other side of the world and you just think, I'd like to be home now. Not that. No. Our hearts and souls were designed to be in a place where God is. To be in his proximity, to know him, to be loved by him. And yet we're all far from that place. The Bible starts with a place, a garden. Humanity is in the presence of God there. And yet by the third chapter of the Bible, they're out and there's no way back. And so when Jesus comes and says, I'm going to create a place for you, what he's doing is fixing the very brokenness of the fabric of this world. That we're far from him, but he says, I'm going to make a place where you can be close. It's a little bit like this. I don't know if you've ever turned up somewhere where you weren't supposed to be. And you kind of knew it, and you felt it. And you felt, I don't belong here, I don't fit here, no one wants me here. If you've ever been in that place, it's not a nice place to be, right? So maybe you've turned up at a wedding, and you've turned up at the wrong bit. Ever done that? You didn't read the invitation properly. And you've only been invited to the bit at the end of the day, and you turn up to the meal in the middle, and there's no place. And your name's not on the board, and you can't find anywhere to sit because there aren't enough seats, they're all full, and everyone's looking at you thinking, what are you doing here? You ever had that? Or you've turned up at someone's house, they've invited you for food, but maybe the cook didn't know you were coming, and there's no place for you. Have you ever had that? Well, the alternative is this. You turn up. And when you arrive, there's a drink for you. And you go to the table and there's a knife and a fork and a plate and food. And if they're really posh, there's a placemat. And you just kind of come and you think, yes, I fit. I belong. I'm home. You ever had that experience? That is exactly what Jesus is talking about. You see, the reality is for all of us, the presence of God is an alien thing. Naturally, we come to God and we don't belong. He's holy and pure, and we are not. And we go in and we just feel, I don't fit here. Some of us come to church And we have that same feeling. I don't fit here. I don't belong here. And yet Jesus is saying, I'm going to prepare a place. Maybe you've heard that before, and you've heard these verses, and you've had images of like a cloudy room with a bed in it. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a place in the very presence of God where you fit, and you belong, and you're welcomed, where your name's on the list. So many of us are very, very good at putting up barriers between ourselves and God and between ourselves and other people. Maybe today you've got 1,000 reasons why God shouldn't accept you. 1,000 reasons why today you don't feel free to come into his presence. Maybe you look at your past and you think that disqualifies me from coming. Maybe you look at your present, and you think he doesn't want me. Jesus says, look, no, I'm going to prepare a place. You don't prepare it. I'm going to do it all of my own grace. That's what Jesus says. I'm going to do this. Thomas hears him. Now, I don't know if you've got a favorite disciple. I don't even know if we're allowed to have favorite disciples, but I do. And it's Thomas. Not just because we share a name. I just love him. I love his brutal honesty. He just kind of speaks, and he is real. He's kind of what the church should be like. So Peter, he'll say things like, Lord, I'll never deny you. And then he does. Thomas, well, here's what he says. I paraphrase. He says, Lord, I'll be honest, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I just love that kind of honesty. A church is for real people. It's not for pretenders or hypocrites. It's for people who say, I haven't got it all figured out. And my life is a bit messy. And I don't know all the answers, but I believe Jesus does. There's no such thing as a proud Christian. That's why I love Thomas. Lord, I don't know where you're going, and I don't know how to get there, and I don't know what you're preparing. I don't understand, Jesus. And he replies, and his reply is mind-blowing. He says, Thomas, you don't know the way. You don't know the way to your place. You know, the place where you belong, the place where there's a place for you. Your name's on the list and you're at home. You don't know the way. And by the way, he's not just talking about heaven here. You don't know the way, Thomas. I'm the way. Knowing me is the way. Trusting in me is your path. It's like Jesus looks Thomas dead in the eyes and says, everything you're looking for is in me. What if you could hear the voice of Jesus say to you today, looking you in the eyes, calling you by name and saying, everything you're looking for is in me. You don't earn it. I'm going to prepare the place. Because here's the reality. Christianity is not a way of life. It doesn't center on an ideology or some kind of abstract idea or theology. It's not about keeping rules, and it's not about conforming. It's not even about getting to heaven. It's not. Christianity is a person. It centers on one. When Jesus called his disciples onto the way, which is what we've been seeing all the way through Mark's gospel, he wasn't calling them to a lifestyle change. He was calling them to him, not to a religion or some kind of discipleship plan, to him, to him. And he's unequivocal in the way he does it. Just, could you imagine now, after this service, you go down to Co-op to buy your lunch because you forgot to put it in the oven or whatever else. You haven't thought about what you're going to have. So you go into Co-op and pick up your sausage roll. And someone in Co-op just speaks out and says, I am the way. Just imagine that. Sure, we've heard people say, hey, I'm the way to you getting rich. Enough people think that. I'm the way to you finding success in life. Yeah, there are people who claim that. I don't know anyone in all of history who simply stood up and said, I am the way. It is utterly unequivocal. And right now, at this point in history, there's no such thing as Christianity. It doesn't exist. And there wouldn't be for a while. In fact, the people who followed Jesus at this point would call their faith the way. And that's all. I belong to the way. I believe in the way. Because they heard Jesus calling them onto the way. And they heard him saying, I am the way. And for them, it was all about him. So easily, Christianity just becomes about trivial things, like buildings and stuff that doesn't really matter. And Jesus just brings it all back to the heart of it. I am the way. It's all in me. I'm the way to my Father's house. I don't know what you think of when you hear those words. In my Father's house are many rooms, or many mansions, as the King James used to put it. I don't know what you think of. But Father's house, it isn't just about heaven. And as Christians, we've got to get away from this idea that the greatest gift that God has given to us is heaven. It's not a place, it's a person. When Jesus talks about my Father's house, he's not talking about some crazy cloudy room in heaven. Not at all. It's kind of impersonal. He's talking about the family of God, the household of God. He's talking about the perfect, loving union that exists within God himself. A loving Father, the joyful Son, and the powerful Spirit. This union of God. And Jesus says, look, I'm your way to finding your place with God, the three in one. And if you want in on that, Jesus says, I'm it. I'm the way. Not to a destination and not just to a kind of geographical location, but I'm your way to acceptance and joy in the family of God himself. And it's what your souls are crying out for. It's everything that was lost at the beginning of the story in Eden. Now, look where he goes, because I want to kind of start to pull a few things together. He carries on and he says, no one comes to the Father but through me. If you really knew me, you'd know my Father as well. And he's saying the same thing, right? Just repeating it in a different way. If you want to come to the house of God, he means the family of God. You come through me. If you want to come to the Father, you come through me. And what he's saying there is astounding, absolutely astounding. And it cuts to the heart of what we believe. To be a Christian isn't to follow a scheme or a religion, not at all. To be a Christian is to be united with Jesus by faith. What does that mean? It means you get to share in all of his blessings and all of his benefits as a son coming to the Father. Jesus said, look, if you know me, if you trust me, then you know my Father too. You have access to the glorious God of all history through me. So when Jesus says to his disciples, don't be troubled, I'm going to prepare a place for you, he has all of that in mind. What's this place? It's a place meshed into who God is. I just love that. And I don't know if you ever kind of got that, but this is what lies at the heart of our faith. Jesus says, I'm the way, I'm the open door into the very presence of God to come. Not as a one-time guest, not as a passer through, but where there is a place for you, where there's a name on the list, and where there's a place marked out for you at the table. And I just want to encourage you today, wherever you are in life and wherever you are in faith, this is what God is like. He says, come in. There's a place for you. Not because you deserve it or you're worthy or you've earned it. Not because your past is so good or anything like that. No, there's a place. I've done it for you. And I'm going to accomplish it through my death. I don't know if for any of you, you ever come into church and you look around you and you look at people and you think, hey, everyone here just seems to have it all together. Did you ever do that? We do that because we only see the surface of people's lives. We often only see what's going on the outside, and it means things look so good. And we look at our messy lives that we're so aware of, and we just say, how have they got it together? And we feel like we don't fit. And sometimes that's the same when we come to God. Maybe you think in the morning, maybe I should pray, and you think, hey, it's not going to make any difference, is it? God's not going to hear me. I don't care about me. Maybe you lift up your voice in worship, if you're allowed to, which we're not at the moment. And you think, oh, everyone else just seems to enjoy God's presence and I just don't fit. Jesus says, I'm the way. I'm the way. Your past isn't the way. Your great spotless record isn't the way. Your abilities aren't the way. I'm the way. I'm going to prepare the place for you through my death and resurrection. Today, I don't know if you call yourself a Christian or not. If you do or if you don't, I want to encourage you to see this. To be a Christian is to be so united with Jesus in faith that everything he is, you are. So that when you come into the presence of God, you're not a stranger and you're not an outsider and you belong. As we come to the end of this series looking at the way, and you've maybe heard the call of Jesus saying, come follow me. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. Come after me. Radical calls to come on the way of Jesus. I just want you to see this so simple truth. That this is a call more than anything else to him. To know him and be loved by him. This is the call of Christianity more than anything else. Oh, man, if we could get this, I think it would change our lives. So often Christianity just looks like any other religion where it's about changing ourselves. It's about conforming our behavior to some pattern set for us. And it's not. It's not. It's about knowing him and allowing him to change us. I want you to know this today. Through Jesus, you have a place with God. You have a forever, never fading, never to be revoked place with him. And yes, it's yours for all eternity, but it's yours today too. Through Jesus, he invites you home to know the deepest longings of your soul met in him. To hear him say, I am the way. Today, you don't need to fear death. You don't need to fear life. He's made a place where the ground is solid for you to stand on today. As we kind of tie this up and come to a close, it's always amazed me that it's possible to be a Christian and yet for our faith to be so shallow. And I know it's possible because I've seen it in me. It amazes me when I meet Christians and their kind of attitude is, hey, I'm good, I'm going to heaven, I don't really care how I live now. And I'm there looking and just thinking, don't you know your name's on the list? Don't you know there's a knife and a fork and a plate and a placemat laid out for you in the presence of God? And he's calling you every day of your life, come, enjoy me, know me. And you're like, I'm just going to wait for heaven, really. That's good. I'll just put it off until then. No, there's a place now for you. And so many people through the years have discovered that's true. Because we kind of hold two things in tandem, I think. We kind of say with one hand, yes, I believe Jesus is the way. Yes, I believe he gives me a place in the presence of God. Yes, he's my way to joy and peace with God, yes. But then we kind of, in the other hand, hold on to this world and say, but I also think money is my way to happiness. I also think a really good retirement is my route to happiness. I also think that kind of to be popular and famous, that's going to do me really well. And that's how my deepest desires are going to be satisfied. And like we saw the last 2 weeks, Jesus is there, so no, I'm calling you to be all out and all in for me. I'm calling you to see that I am the way, nothing else is. Imagine how incendiary that would have heard to his hearers. I mean, we think that we live in a society which kind of believes and accepts a whole lot of things. Nothing like the first century. Every big city would have had numerous temples to numerous gods, and in the middle of it all, Jesus says, I'm the way to God. Imagine just how radical that would have sounded to people who weren't Jews around him. To you, What does God want you to know today? He wants you to know there's a place prepared for you. A place where today you can come and rest in the presence of God and find that you belong, not because of you, but because of him. To regretful people, he says, come to me, I'm the way. To freedom from the regrets that you have over the past. To lost and wandering people, he says, I'm the way today for you to come and be found. To those imprisoned in their own thoughts, he says, I'm your way to liberty. To those in the grips of current affairs and the news and cycles of gloom and despair, he says, I'm the way to hope. To those who feel they don't belong and they don't have a place and they don't fit, he says, I'm the way to a place where you are accepted and where you belong, to where there's a place at the table for you. A place not as a stranger or a guest, but as a son and a daughter. Church, will you hear Jesus' call today to come to him? Maybe like last week, we saw blind Bartimaeus, who was sat at the edge of the road as Jesus walked through. Maybe you're at the edge of it all today. Jesus is saying, no, come. I'm the way, follow me. Come, I'm the way, know me. I wonder today, guys, you want to come up? As we respond to these simple words of Jesus, I am the way. I wonder what God is stirring in your heart. For some of you, maybe you've lost your way over these last few months of difficulty. Maybe somehow you've been distracted by the world around you. Maybe because of all the news cycles that we've been watching, you've somehow come to believe that the end of coronavirus is the way. That's the way. That's what you're looking forward to. That's your hope. Jesus says, no, I'm your way. I am the way. Maybe some of you would say, hey, I used to follow Jesus. Yeah. I used to be all in, but I kind of lost my way. You know, there's still a place for you. Your name's still on the list. Still a place marked out at the table for you. Today he calls you back. Some of you may be still thinking, yeah, well, I'm just so broken. My life's still just such a mess. He says to you too, I'm the way. I have gone to prepare a place with my life and death for you. Guys are just going to play and sing. You're welcome to, you know, if you want to speak the words, you can do that. You can hum them. Or you can just listen and just allow God to speak to you. These words are 2,000 years old. But Jesus is alive and he still speaks today. Maybe you just bow your heads for a moment as the guys start to sing. Just hear those words again. I am the way. When it seems like there's no way forwards, when all the ways that you've been pursuing joy and happiness seem to just end nowhere, I am the way to God, to fulfillment and joy in his presence. I am the truth when nothing seems certain. I am the life when life itself comes into question and death seems so real. I am your way, and I am your truth, and I am your way. Lord, today we just bow before you and thank you that you have come to us. You've come as a rescuer and as a savior. You've come to bring us back onto your way, to bring us home to knowing you. You've come that we might have a place when our place seems lost, and our place is with you. Lord, today we just come back. Those who maybe feel like they've been wandering, Lord, we come back. And we say we want to know you. Those who maybe today are saying, I don't know if I've ever really known you at all. Lord, we come back. And we just walk through this open door that you have prepared for us. And say, thank you, God, for grace. Thank you for your mercy, where you laid down your life for us, that we might live. We might live in the abundance of your life. Lord, we love you. Just call out to you now and pray, Lord, would you pour out your Spirit on us, that we might know more of the fullness of your presence. We might know more of what it is to have a place in the presence of God. Some this morning, I just get the sense God is saying this isn't theory, this isn't an idea. I want you to know the joy of my presence. I want you to know the most secure place, and that it isn't a building, and it isn't a house, it is my presence. And I want to shelter you under the shadow of my wing, cover you in the righteousness of my Son. Some this morning, God says to you, I am your shelter and storm. This isn't theory. I want you to know my presence. And so to some of you this morning, I wonder, just as God calls you, maybe even challenges you, what will this look like in your life? What's it going to look like for this to be your place, your refuge? Not a bottle, not an escapist TV show. No, what's it going to look like if He is your place of refuge each day? If you run to Him every morning, as His doors open and He says, come. Let's respond as the guys lead us.
Grace is enough, more than I need. At your word I will believe. I wait for you, draw near again. Let your Spirit make me new, and I will fall at your feet. Great is the love poured out for all this